My name is Jesper Just, and we're here at Nicolai Wallner Gallery at my new exhibition Interoceptions, which is opening today. Interoceptions is kind of an umbrella for all the internal signals that our body sends. It has a lot to do also with our regulations of emotions. A good example could be if you eat too much sugar, you can feel that, and it can have an effect on your emotional state. If you have too much coffee, it will also give you a certain sensation, so it can even impact your emotional state. Also sometimes that you're not even aware of, but your gut can also signal stuff too. So it's like the inner signals that our body sends. And as you see here, we have a representation of a forest, and the forest is installed on this big structure of industrial lime wood. You could say the physiology of trees is holding up the representation of forest. And I've for a long time been interested in the processes and the physiology of trees and putting nature in center instead of what we are usually doing with the Anthropocene and thinking that we are in center, but basically there are many centers and the human is just, a part of nature. So I've been interested in the interior of certain aspects of nature, and this work comes out of a public permanent installation in the city of Aarhus in Denmark, where there is a tree standing in front of a building, and there are measurements on the tree of the processes going on in the tree. So sap flow, which is the water intake, and growth, chlorophyll, and so those measurements are controlling the actual visual look of the film. So in a way, this tree, it is now real time in the city controlling the film on this facade of a building, which is a slowly turning forest, as you also see behind me. Here it's not part of the installation of the tree, but it's based on those data that over several years now have seen the tree in a way controlling. So if sap flow goes up, the colors will change. And what we did was we have filmed various forests in Denmark, and in a very slow process, every scene is one day of shooting. So just one take is one day of shooting, but it's actually 6 takes put together. So we start from dusk till dawn, and we're just filming 20 minutes, very slowly, traveling shot through a forest. And then when we come to the end, we start over, and then it's become a little bit darker, and then we start again. And so we have different steps of daylight till it's completely dark. And at the same time, we put infrared light in the forest. So suddenly, as the visible light disappears, the infrared light takes over. So there are these different steps of mix of visible light and infrared light. And we can't see infrared light, but the camera can. And there was something interested in shooting with 2 cameras at the same time, which we did through a see-through mirror, like a spy mirror. So we filmed one camera filmed up here and out, and the other one filmed down here and out. And that way, it was interesting because it was actually, we found out that, it is common known knowledge, but the infrared light and visible light have different wavelengths. And that also means that when they hit the lens of the camera, the sharpness level is different. So if you have a sharp image in daylight and then you turn to infrared, it will be out of focus, even though it's the same camera. And so we started to play with that. So it also, at the same time, goes in and out of daylight and infrared light. The sharpness also goes in and out, so there are these changes in sharpness. So what we end up with is 6 layers of forest, but in different settings of mix from complete visible light, daylight, and no infrared light, and slowly deeper and darker to pure infrared light, and that's where it's very dark purple. So it goes from green to dark purple, and in between there are all these colors that just appeared in the camera. Nothing has been color adjusted, it's just made in the camera, put on top of each other, and then it goes in and out the layers, which was originally controlled from the different processes inside the tree. It's very, in a way, simple. If one parameter goes up, it's connected to one layer, and that will be more visible. So it goes with transparency. So if it goes down, it slowly just vanish, and then it gets more and more dominant, and so they are kind of constantly competing with each other. Another reason why I was interested in kind of displaying this raw wood was also the fact that you can see the rings, and I find it fascinating that trees also function as some kind of organic hard drive of collective memory, where we have stored carbon dioxide in the rings, so you can actually go in an old tree and see when certain events happened, and that is layered in the rings, and so I found that fascinating. At the same time also, this when you have a whole forest, it's kind of becomes maybe sometimes like a stafas, but when you have one tree standing at the town square, people suddenly get an emotional attachment, and it's been outliving us through generations. So I'm fascinated about that kind of idea, and it also plays into the whole concept of plant blindness, where we basically don't know what the names of the different plants are, and how to respect something when we don't even know them by name. So I think if starting with teaching knowledge of nature and stuff, that will help a lot in terms of respecting it more. As with the image, 6 layers, each layer also have its own soundtrack, so when one layer becomes more visible, its soundtrack also becomes more present, so it goes in and out. So suddenly, if the purple becomes more dominant, the sound of that layer also stands out more. So it's a constant mix. It's made by August Rosenbaum, and we went to record all these different instruments that are based on wood and wind, or organs, an organ with wood pipes. And so it has that materiality. We also recorded through the trees, putting contact mics on trees, and had sounds through that. So it's a soundscape that is a combination of a lot of different instruments, but each layer is kind of having their own focus. The film looks very simple, but it was the most complicated thing I ever done, and also very technical. And so it was like 20 meters rails of a dolly, and then we had a motion control, so it could do the exact same timing. So it was just rolling slowly, and then when it came to the end, we reset, waited for an hour, and then shot again. But it was super slow. And we had one day the motion control broke, and it was a big problem because that's the only thing we did was kind of press play and then just stand. It was very meditative to shoot also, but it broke, and we had this one grip, and he said, "I can do it." And then he just had a metronome in his ear, and then he just walked the same, and I think he was just, in a 20-minute shot, I think he was 5 seconds, maybe 8 seconds off, and it was kind of incredible. So maybe we wouldn't have needed it after all. So he did some good runs until we had it fixed. I've long been interested in these pre-cinematic rides that were especially popular, like at world fairs in Paris in 1900 and before, where you would be able to travel on the spot. Maybe you would go on a ship and it would rock from side to side, and you have these big scrolls that make the sensation of travel, scrolls of paintings of seashores, and that would give you the feeling of traveling, but you were actually just on the spot there. So that whole idea, it also had a big influence on filmmaking later to come. This kind of sitting and traveling, panoramic shots, all that. So this is also in that sense kind of a traveling machine, both in the fact that you are in these various forests, but also one thing is we go sideways really slow, but we also, in a way, because we have 6 different times of the day collapsing, so you also kind of travel in time as you travel this way. So I like that kind of double layer. Yeah, so that's an infrared light lamp. So when we're standing there filming 20 minutes, a whole crew, and and it goes like this, the machine. And no one can see what we film because only the camera can see it. And of course there's a monitor, but most of the crew don't know because we're just in darkness. So it was a very special experience to stand there in darkness when the camera would see this. I feel it's very hypnotic. It's, you know, of course you can come in and look 2 minutes and oh, he filmed us some wood. I think it's something that is nice just to can just keep going. It's like watching a fireplace or something, and it keeps coming in and out of each other because the changes of light, you couldn't do that in post because it's created the analog way it is. Maybe you could, but it would be very complicated to go in and track, and here it just comes in and out because where light comes, it just shines through, and so it's, in that sense, I have not much control on. I've not been making any kind of image masks, so it comes through here. It comes through where it comes through. For me, it's just fascinating to watch how that just appears. I can just sit and stare at it. Yeah, I think maybe we should have launches or something. Sunbeds. Yeah, I think it's just meditative and nice. Yeah, maybe close to wellness.